June 16, 12:36 p.m. documentation / practice purposes. This is on Facebook yesterday. But I have just got done reading this chapter about Fadak. It's the next chapter after Kabar was conquered. And it didn't give a date, but I'm assuming it happened later on in 628 A.D. because Kabar was conquered in February, between January and February of that month. But anyway, after they had everything set up as far as Kabar, sometime later on, the prophet, this is during his lifetime still, by the way, he had sent a messenger to Fadak. Because as far as the map, Fadak is also south of Kabar. It's north of Medina and another place called Fame, but it's south of Kabar. But he had sent the messenger. His name was Muhayyi. Muhayyi Saul or Muhayyi Saul Ibn Mas'ud. He had sent him there, and basically gave him a I got to flesh this part out, because it's not one author on the fucking subject. You got like about 4 or 5 different people that was talking about this portion of history. Again, it is differences. One person just says he went there and gave him an offer, and then they basically yielded to the offer. Another person. Basically what happened was he went there, and I don't want to say he threatened the people, but, he gave them like a lay down, like a get down or lay down type of message. And then these people in Fadak had already heard about what happened in Kabar. And by the way, this is the Jewish population also. So they went ahead and yielded to the suggestion that Muhammad had gave them through this messenger. And the suggestion was basically the same type of deal that was given to the people in Kabar. Okay, whatever that y'all produce on this land, you're going to pay half of it to us as a form of taxes, a sadaka, that's what we're going to call it. But at the same time, being that y'all now are under this stipulation, you are also under Muslim rule, which means that your land is protected as well. So it's a form of payment, and you get to stay here. So in other words, they got subjugated, to put it lightly or whatever. So that's what happened. Okay, so later on, I'm assuming by this point, Muhammad had died because some of his wives, they didn't mention their names, they had sent Uthman to Abu Bakr, and they was trying to, ask for like a profit from the produce that was made in Fadak. And Abu Bakr was basically, he didn't do it, but when Aisha heard about it, she had a conversation with them. She basically told them about the rule that Muhammad had, which is that sadaqahs are not to just be inherited. It's kind of like sadaqahs are not only taxes, but it's kind of they're kind of like I don't want to say like a welfare state, but like they're saved. Okay, they're it's a form of taxes, but it creates a treasure at the same time. All right, and it helps pay for what they call wayfarers. People that's passing through, and also the word also translates to Bedouins, as well as the Muslim population there and the people around. But me thinking about it, I think it's also like a promotional tool as well. Think about it. If you somebody that's not of the Islamic faith, and you are a nomad, or you are a, what they call in Arabia, in part, a Bedouin, if you got a guarantee that you can go to this land, like, okay, because up to this point you got Fadaka, you got Kabar, and you got Medina. Up to this point, you got 3 options of oasis in Arabia that you can go to if you're a nomad. And you can live there, and the only rule, not even rule, but stipulation, I guess, that you'll have to submit to Islam. That's it. That's why I look at it as kind of like a promotional tool as well. That's what that word translates to as far as wayfarers. Now, I don't think they're only talking about Islamic nomads. I mean, because this is still during the period of this big revolution that was going on. So it's also a promotional tool, but it's kind of brilliant at the same time, to be honest with you. That's how I look at it. But anyway, Aisha explained to them that that's what sadaqahs are for. It is not to simply be inherited. After she explained that to them, they fell back. Now, that part of the story makes sense to me, that was a rule put out there by Muhammad. You want to know why? Because when he was in Kabar and they had conquered the place, like I said, you had different authors on the subject. One said he took like 1/5 of Kabar. In other words, the forts. The fort that I believe that he took, that I agree with, was Al-Katibar. Another author says that he took Ash-Sheikh and Al-Sulalim, but I believe it was Al-Katibar. And when he took that fort, the produce that was produced from that fort was for personal gain. All 4 other forts, that was for, like, those are, the produce was a form of sadaqah, religious payment, or really taxes as I look at it. But Muhammad himself didn't personally take from those sadaqahs for personal gain. He got his shit from the 5th of Kabar that he made his, and then he went further with it. So I'm talking about Kabar still. He went further with it, and then gave his wives a certain amount of camels and dates. In other words, fruits and etc. In other words, he gave them a nice percentage of the produce that he generated, but specifically from his portion of Kabar, not from the general population. So when I fast forward and I think about Fadak, and I'm thinking about what Aisha, as far as what's written, Aisha is his wife, by the way. I'm thinking about Aisha as far as what was written in regards to what she had said to the other mothers of the believers. That makes sense. She didn't do nothing but basically reiterated the rule that Muhammad had put forth. All right? So that settles that part. Okay, later on, Fatima. Now, Fatima is his daughter. She's not Aisha's daughter, by the way. She's Muhammad and Khadija's daughter. And Fatima was born in 605, so that would be 4 years after Ali was born, and still preceding Aisha. So if this occurred later on in 628, she would be around like 23, somewhere around that, 23 years old. Yeah, 23 years old. Anyway, she had went to Abu Bakr, and she asked for land. Now again, this is why I think this is during the caliphate of Abu Bakr, because first off, as far as the wives of Muhammad, let me get to that real quick. If Muhammad was still alive at that time, they wouldn't have had to send nobody named Uthman. The third caliphate of the Rashidun period. They would not have had to send him to talk to Abu Bakr, because they would have a direct relation with Muhammad. So, I mean, I don't think that would be a cultural thing where you need to send a man to talk to another man. And even if that was the case, okay, if their husband was alive, all they got to do is communicate with him. That's why I don't think Muhammad was alive at this time. That's why Aisha had to reiterate the rule that he had put forth. But going back to Fatima, she had went to Abu Bakr in person and communicated, or basically told him that she wanted Fadak. This is where reading comprehension comes in. Not that she wanted to be the king of Fadak, by the way. Hell no, look, I read this article, this botanical article and shit, and it was like, it was an issue, and Muhammad gave Fadak to Fatima. I don't know who the fuck wrote that, unless I'm not memorizing it right, but that was completely false. But she had wanted a percentage of the produce of the Sadaka that the people of Fadak will pay or produce or give up. He had told, because she said this is one of her father's wishes for her. He told her, now this is going to the various authors on it, because I don't want to be linear. I want to kind of touch different bases as far as what different people said. I mean, I could just put this all together, but, you know, this is practice, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm not writing a whole analysis of the overall picture yet. But anyway, he told her, based on different testimonials, that she had to get 3 witnesses. One person said he told her she had to get like 2 men and 1 woman. Another guy says that Abu Bakr told her she got to get 2 women and 1 man. And then some of these people that she so-called brought forth as a witness included Bilal ibn Rabah, Ayman, but that was the lady that also raised Prophet Muhammad. She was black, by the way. She was African. She was parents' slave when he was young, and then when they died, you know, they asked her to make sure, his father asked her to make sure she look over him. And she basically raised Muhammad, and he had a lot of reverence for her, etc. He also brought her freedom, or gained her freedom later on. But anyway, she was black, and she was of Ethiopian descent as well. But she was supposed to have been one of the witnesses. So her, Bilal ibn Rabah, another person of Ethiopian descent, and one more individual. Who was it? I think so-called Umar. Could have been Uthman, but I think so-called Umar. But all that's false, and I believe it was false, but this is just based on some of the alternate testimonials. But I believe all that's false, because what ultimately ended up happening is this. He basically told her, and this is according to another author, but again, it's like you take this shit, you analyze it fairly, objectively, and see what's more than likely the fucking case, by the way, because if she had gained those fucking lands as far as the Sadakas and all of this, why would later on during Umar's caliphate, you know, when he started kind of going outside the box and shit, why would he give some of her descendants? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. So anyway, going back to this part, he basically told her the same thing that Aisha had communicated to the other mothers of the believers, the other wives of Prophet Muhammad, the other widows at the time, what a Sadaka was for. And then she went a step further, and she was persistent, and she was like, well, what about you? I mean, you get benefits from these as well. And then he had told her, like, look, that's only because of the position I'm in. This is during my lifetime. When I die, my descendants do not inherit this. You know what I'm saying? And then basically she just fell back on that. So that's all they pretty much said about Fadak. But Fadak was also a land full of Jews. But it's another place after Fadak that they went on into, which is also north of Medina. It's called Wadi, and I'm going to get on that chapter today. Like I say, this is practice. But, yeah, Fadak was also full of Jews, and as a last side note for myself for retention purposes, when Umar became the Khalifa, like I say, I don't know the exact year when he did this, but if he ruled from 634 to 644, sometime during that period, probably like in the middle of it, he had kicked the people off of the land, right? Kabar, even though you got 2 different stories as to why, and I don't think either one of those is true, I do believe he kicked their ass off the land, and then he also kicked the people off of the land of Fadak. You know what I'm saying? Around that same time period, that's when they went north, all right? Now, this is funny. I had uploaded something yesterday, right? It's an old conversation that I heard, like, shit, man, what? I forget when it was, I don't know if it was '09 or '07, whenever they aired that shit on television. It was Geraldo Rivera and Michelle Malkin, and they was talking about immigration reform. And I was listening to it again, right, yesterday, and I was like, oh, shit. And Geraldo had mentioned as far as people, you know, pulling down the pants of the Jews and this and that. He was like, they've been doing this since Hammurabi and, the English expulsion of the Jews, the Spanish expulsion of the Jews, and the Arabians. I was like, damn, I know a little bit about this history, too. Come to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Because all of this occurred in the early 7th century. You know what I'm saying? Because when they got kicked off of the land of Kabar and Fadak, they got sent as far as north, all the way to Syria. I know a little bit of history after that point as well concerning them. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention what they had went through later on in Spain during the early 8th the early 8th century and the late 7th century. So I was like, shit, he knows a little bit about this too. But it is what it is. But, yeah, that's all they pretty much said about Fadak. Again, I'm assuming that this happened in 628 later on that year. And I go ahead and check the date, but more than like, no, it couldn't. I'm tripping. No, it could not. No, it could not, because Muhammad had died. He died in what? 632. Yeah, 632. So it wasn't 628. It was, it couldn't have been 628. But like I say, this Fadak got conquered after Kabar. So if it happened I ain't going to say way after, but, much later after 628, more than likely the people of Fadak heard about this. So this had to have been between 632 and 634. And again, as far as Fatima, if her father was alive, and this is only based on what I read, like I say, if there's other testimonials out there that validates the fact that this is during a period when her father was alive, and I have to make I have to change some shit that I wrote down and documented in my notes section on Facebook. But I'm thinking logically in my head, if her father Muhammad was still alive, she would not have needed to have a conversation with Abu Bakr. You know what I mean? And try to get like a percentage from the Sadakas, from the people of Fadak. She could she could talk to her father because he will be the guy that's in command ultimately. You know what I'm saying? This is preceding any caliph, any person that was voted into office in a fucking building of Saqaba. You know what I'm saying? Medina. It will precede all of that. So that's why I believe that, especially Fatima and the other wives, I believe it had to happen between 632 and 634. Because Abu Bakr only reigned for 2 years as caliph and he died. So, like I say, I have to double check that. But that's all I got to say for now. Going on to the next chapter later on today. 12:55 p.m. June the 16th.